We knew they were fanatical, but we appreciated it when they charged right into our machine guns. I was at home, and we lived in Jersey City at the time. And my mother came and told me she'd heard on the radio that the Japanese had attacked Pearl Harbor. The big question was, where and what is Pearl Harbor? Nobody knew where Pearl Harbor was. When we found out, then I guess we knew we were going to war, or the Japanese wanted war. When the war started, there were several Marine recruiters around the school, and I liked the uniform, so I thought I might try to get in the Marines. We never heard anything until maybe a day or two before we got to where we were going. The word was that the less we knew, the better. And at the time, Guadalcanal, nobody could pronounce it. Nobody had heard of it. And they called it everything, including got an old gal. And so, never having heard of it, it didn't make much difference to us where we were going to land. It was all a big adventure for us. It was a big, mountainous, jungle-covered island. And it looked, from the sea, it looked somewhat foreboding. But we had no idea what was in store for us there. Our platoon leader told us that we would be landing on an island called, he had difficulty pronouncing it, in the morning. And that this island was loaded with Japs. And we thought that we would be going directly into heavy combat. When we got off, climbed down the ropes and into our assault boats, which were called Higgins boats, we all had to form up for the landing, which was in not one wave, one bunch, but 3 waves. And the battleships and our support ships were firing the big guns on the island, and we had some air support from our carrier, which I think we had. And we were fairly confident with all that going on behind us or with us. We were content for a short time that no Japanese were shooting at us, but reality set in when we had to cut our way through a coney grass field for several miles, and cutting through a coney grass field, coney grass is about 6 or 7 feet high. Cutting through a coney grass field with a bayonet or machete in the sun, tropical sun, after sitting on our tails on board ship for a couple of months, was blah. We hit the ridges and the jungle. Most of the ridges were jungle covered. And that was not easy going either, but about that time it was getting dark, so we settled down in our spaces wherever we were, and no trouble sleeping. We heard naval gunfire, but we never knew until we got back to the beach that our ship had been sunk. A Japanese Betty bomber we heard crashed into the stern of our ship, the George F. Elliott, which contained all of our supplies, personal gear, bedding, tents, everything we had. It wasn't really a naval battle at the time. It was Japanese air raids hitting our landing ships, and most of our Navy withdrew. We did feel a little bit hung out to dry and hungry. The 5th Marines went across the airfield and captured a whole load of Japanese rice and oats, which actually was what kept us from starving. When the Japanese found out we'd landed, they had a large base up in northern New Britain, another island in the chain, and they bombed us regularly every day. I remember the bombs were endless. We had some Australian coast watchers that warned us a little bit, but we'd get condition red or condition yellow when they were on the way, and then condition red when they were just about there. Well, everybody had dysentery, and we had a little two-seater outside the bivouac area, and I was sitting on a seat one day, and they gave condition yellow, and I said, I'm not going to move. And they gave condition red. I said, I better move. I went over and got in a dugout, and the bombs walked right through the area. After the raid, I got up. I said, I have to go back to the two-seater. Well, when I got there, there was a hole about 40 feet around where the two-seater sat. So I had to find someplace else. We were right on the Tenaru, and that was the first Japanese reaction to our landing. And one of our patrols had already discovered they were there. But fortunately, my squad was guarding the battalion commander's tent, and we weren't directly on the river, but we had several machine guns set up. The only way across that river, except the beach, was covered. I mean, it was a wide, rough river, but there was a big sandbar on the beach that crossed it, and the river came to a dead end there. That's where the Japanese tried to cross, en masse, on the night of the 21st. And they charged right into our machine guns. We had several machine guns on that sandbar. And the next day, the palm groves that we were in were covered with Japanese dead. The Japanese bodies covered the beach, and as far as we knew, well inland through the palm groves, but there were survivors. The commander sent our 1st Battalion up through the palm groves where the Japanese were, and they cleaned out the ones that were left there. We knew they were fanatical, but we appreciated it when they charged right into our machine guns. We heard that the Chinese used to run when the Japanese hollered banzai and charged, but we didn't have any place to run. We stayed on the beach for a while, which was not too pleasant because there were so many dead around that couldn't be buried. But later on, they started hitting us up on the ridges around the airfield. After, maybe 2 months, our Navy started to come back, but they really got torn up by, those were the last, I'd say, great naval surface battles that took place anywhere. And the Japanese were a lot more experienced at it than we were, so we lost a lot of ships in those naval battles. Well, the Army came in several months later, and we were most happy to see them. They had supplies and goodies that we hadn't seen in months. So there was a lot of trading and intermingling, and we got along fine. We left Guadalcanal in December of that year, 42.